Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 14 2019 NFL predictions. Well, for the Fanatic this week, it was an above 500 week. So I'm happy about that. But definitely, it was a bizarre week of where most of the results were incredibly surprising or disappointing. For a lot of different games. But that's the joy of the NFL, is that every time that you watch NFL games, you end up in a spot where you never know what's going to happen, and that's the joy of it. Who would have thought this yesterday and this on Thanksgiving that the Cincinnati Bengals, who were the last winless team in the NFL, would take on a Jets team that had won 3 straight games. And both of them, 2 of them by over 20 points, back with the Redskins and the Raiders. Who would have thought that the Jets, riding a 3-game winning streak, trying to get their first 4-game winning streak since 2015, would lay an absolute egg against the Cincinnati Bengals. You know, the Jets are the first team in NFL history to have 2 losses against teams that were 0-7 or worse. That was stunning. And congratulations to Andy Dalton for becoming the all-time leader in Bengals touchdown passes with 198. But nobody expected that. Who would have thought that this weekend the Carolina Panthers, who were just coming off one of their best games of the year, a 3-point loss to New Orleans, that could have been a 3-point win if Joey Sly wouldn't have missed a 28-yard field goal. Who would have thought that they would have played the Washington Redskins, who had just beaten Jeff Driscoll, who's now on the IR, and the Lions? Who would have thought that the Redskins would have ran all over the Carolina Panthers defense, and they would have won the game 29-21. But more surprisingly, when I look at the Panthers, they actually got an onside kick, and Kyle Allen on 4th and goal took a 20-plus yard sack. Who would have thought that would have happened? Who would have thought that the Miami Dolphins, who, ever since they played Washington have been a better team, would play the Philadelphia Eagles, who had an opportunity to win to take a tie with the NFC East Cowboys, would lose 37-31, and lose a 28-14 lead in the second half. They threw 48 passes in the game against the second worst run defense in the league, and they were playing a team that had the worst point differential in the league. They were minus 183 in point differential. And the Dolphins went on to put up 37 points, the most points they have scored in a game in 4 years. So, to me, when you have games like that, that kind of connects with what I believe with my records this week. So, this week, straight up, against the spread, I went 9-6, which equals 60%. And straight up, I went 8-7, which equals 53%. So a very rare week for me where my against the spread record actually is a little bit better than my straight up record. And now overall for the year, I am 190-1 against the spread, which equals about 52 points, which equals 52.6%. And straight up for the year now, I'm 119-71-1, which equals 62.6%. So I'm hitting both against the spread and straight up right around. I think my against the spread record is a little bit above average for how I've done the last few years, and my straight-up record is right around the range where I usually get about 63% of the games right. But to get within 10 percentage points of each other, that's pretty good. But then just a few points on some of the other games. I want to congratulate the Packers for getting a big win over the Giants. Daniel Jones and the Giants, that's just a really tough watch for Giants fans. I know they didn't have Ingram. I know they didn't have Golden Tate. I know they had a couple other injuries on the offensive side of the ball, or Red Ellison couldn't play. But Daniel Jones, after kind of going through the first quarter, he had that big touchdown to Shepard. After getting that and throwing 3 interceptions, one to Darnell Savage, and I don't know who the other 2 were, that was just a tough loss, but good for the Packers to be able to go to the East Coast and beat the Giants in a place where Aaron Rodgers typically is able to win most of his games. I think the last time he lost in that stadium was 2010, the 9-0 game with Rex Ryan and against Rex Ryan and the Jets. So good for the Packers. When you look at some of the other games, the Oakland Raiders got demolished by the Chiefs, 40-9. It wasn't really even a competitive game. The Chiefs went on to score a touchdown on the kick return the next play. The Raiders fumbled the football. Patrick Mahomes, threw for about 175 yards and a touchdown. Juan Thornhill, their rookie safety, got a big pick six on Derek Carr, where basically he read the route for Derek Carr and ran it back. And it was just an absolute wipeout. And that pretty much, to me, locks up the Chiefs for the AFC West this year. Again, winning the division for the 6th time, I believe, in the Andy Reid era. Or 13, 15, 16, 17, 18. Yeah, 6th time in 7 years in the Andy Reid era. He also is now 18-3 after a bye, which is the best record for any coach in the NFL. So, with all that being said, I thought that was a notable game. And then I'll speak about the other games as I go through the games. The other one I will mention is the Baltimore Ravens are now the number 1 seed in the NFL in the AFC by beating the San Francisco 49ers 20-17. Justin Tucker hit a 49-yard field goal right down the middle in a rainstorm. Lamar Jackson had 105 yards passing, 101 yards rushing. He has now had 4 games this year with 100-plus yards rushing, which breaks an NFL record held by Michael Vick. And he's only 63 yards away from breaking Michael Vick's single-season rushing record at, I believe, 1,051 or 1,052 yards. And I believe Lamar Jackson will get that record. But I will say this to every Ravens fan out there. I was concerned about how well the Niners played. Raheem Mostert had a career-high 63 yards rushing. He was gashing this defense consistently, and they were just able to kind of move the ball at will. And we gave up some big plays. We gave a 33-yard touchdown to Deebo Samuel. We also let Emmanuel Sanders on big 4th downs get some pretty big conversions that could have been a difference in the game. And also Lamar Jackson had his first fumble of the year lost when he did that end-around run, and the backup safety for the Niners, number 36, who was coming in for the injured Jaquiski Tart, went on and got that turnover, but that fortunately did not affect the game for the worse for the Ravens, because he ended up Chris something. He ended up getting the block on the 4th and 1 when Garoppolo tried to throw it. I was surprised. They were averaging 6 yards a carry on the ground, and they went for a 4th and 1 throw, which surprised me. But I thought that was an incredible game, and if this is, a lot of people say this is a Super Bowl preview, if this game happens to end up being the Super Bowl, I will be very glad to watch this again in the Miami, hopefully sunshine. But it is Miami, it's an outdoor stadium, so who knows what will happen with the weather. Alright, so time for my picks for this week. Alright, so this Thursday, in a battle of 500 teams, one in a bad position, the other in a different one, when the 6-6 Dallas Cowboys go to the 6-6 Dallas Cowboys go to the 6-6 Chicago Bears, the Dallas Cowboys are 3-point favorites in this game. I like Chicago here in an upset, so I'm going to take Chicago +3 and Chicago straight up. And then on Sunday, when the 5-7 Carolina Panthers go to the 3-9 Atlanta Falcons, the Atlanta Falcons are 2-point favorites in this game. I like Atlanta here -2 and Atlanta straight up. Then the next game, when the 10-2 Baltimore Ravens go to the 9-3 Buffalo Bills, the Baltimore Ravens are 5.5-point favorites in this game. I like Baltimore here -5.5 and Baltimore straight up. And then the next game, when the 1-11 Cincinnati Bengals go to the 5-7 Cleveland Browns, the Cleveland Browns are 8-point favorites in this game. I like Cleveland here to win straight up, but I will take Cincinnati +8. Then the next game, when the 3-9 Washington Redskins go to the 9-3 Green Bay Packers, the Green Bay Packers are 13.5-point favorites in this game. I like Green Bay here -13.5 and Green Bay straight up. Then the next game, when the 3-8-1 Detroit Lions go to the 9-3 or 8-4 Minnesota Vikings. And a quick reminder, I am taking the Seattle Seahawks here -3 this evening against the Minnesota Vikings and Seattle straight up. So when in that game, the Minnesota Vikings are 13.5-point favorites in this game. I like Minnesota here to win straight up, but I will take Detroit plus 13.5. And then in possible NFC Championship game preview, when the 10-2 San Francisco 49ers go to the 10-2 New Orleans Saints, this game was too close and too hard to decide, so I apologize for all my viewers out there. I hedged my bet in this game, so I'm going to take the New Orleans Saints here to win straight up, but I'll take San Francisco plus 3. Then the next game, when the 3-9 Miami Dolphins go to the 4-8 New York Jets. The New York Jets are 6-point favorites in this game. I like Miami here to get a season sweep of the New York Jets. I do not remember when the last time that happened. I will look that up, but I'm going to take the, it might be 2008. I'm going to take the Miami Dolphins here plus 6 and the Miami Dolphins straight up. Then the next game, when the 6-6 Indianapolis Colts go to the 5-7 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 3-point favorites in this game. I like Tampa Bay here -3 and Tampa Bay straight up. Then the next game, when the 4-8 Denver Broncos go to the 8-4 Houston Texans. The Houston Texans are 8-point favorites in this game. I like Houston here to win straight up, but I will take Denver here plus 8. Then the next game, when the 4-8 Los Angeles Chargers go to the 4-8 Jacksonville Jaguars. The Los Angeles Chargers are 2.5-point favorites in this game. I like Jacksonville here in an upset, so I will take Jacksonville here plus 2.5 and Jacksonville straight up. Then the next game, when the 7-5 Tennessee Titans go to the 6-6 Oakland Raiders. The Tennessee Titans are 3-point favorites in this game. I like the Tennessee Titans here -3 and Tennessee straight up. Then the next game, in the AFC Championship rematch, when the 8-4 Kansas City Chiefs go to the 10-2 New England Patriots. The New England Patriots are 3-point favorites in this game. I like the upset here, so I'm going to take Kansas City here +3 and Kansas City straight up. Then the next game, when the 7-5 Pittsburgh Steelers go to the 3-8-1 Arizona Cardinals. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 1.5-point favorites in this game. I like Pittsburgh here -1.5 and Pittsburgh straight up. Then the next game, when the 10-2 or 9-3 Seattle Seahawks go to the 7-5 Los Angeles Rams. The Seattle Seahawks are 2.5-point favorites in this game. I like Seattle Seahawks here -2.5 and the Seattle Seahawks straight up. And then finally in the Monday night game, when the 2-10 New York Giants go to the 5-7 Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles, amazingly, are 8.5-point favorites in this game. I like Philadelphia here to win straight up, but I will take the New York Giants +8.5. Alright, so time for my thoughts on each game. The Chicago Bears over the Dallas Cowboys. This game, to me, is very similar in how both teams have played. I think you can make an argument for both teams. They have underachieved mightily in where I think a lot of people had expectations and a lot of people had, aspirations for maybe Super Bowl or definitely conference championship means. But after what I saw from the Cowboys against the Bills, Dak Prescott had 2 big turnovers. He had an interception by Matt Milano, and he had the fumble recovered by... he had the fumble caused by Oliver and recovered by Starlo Tulele. The Cowboys did not run the ball after about the 6... It was either the 9:40 or 6:40 mark against the Bills in the third quarter, which stunned me. And the Bills' offense was just able to kind of fundamentally be able to make some more bigger chunk plays. They had the big touchdown trick play from Josh Allen to John Brown to Devin Singletary, very creative by Brian Daboll. You had Josh Allen getting a, heroic 4th and 1 by basically he botched the snap and then was able to pick up the ball and run through the entire Cowboys defensive line. Cole Beasley had a 100-yard game against his former team. And I just really looked at the Cowboys, and I was very stunned with how ineffective they were. And the reason why I'm going with the Bears is I just feel like Dak Dak going into Chicago, the first time he's playing the Bears, I believe, in his career. I'm not very confident in them. And with the Bears, they've won 3 of 4 games. They haven't played great competition, but I have to tell you, Trubisky, I thought, did a good job. He threw for over 300 yards. He threw for 3 TDs. He had that really bad pick to, I believe it was Slay, on the one-handed play. But I thought Trubisky had a nice game. Allen Robinson was able to make some nice contributions. Anthony Miller had a career day. And I just like what the Bears have been doing. There's something about the Bears that in this spot, here's Trubisky's numbers. He went 29 of 38, 338 yards, 3 TDs, and a pick. Anthony Miller had 9 receptions for under 40 yards. Robinson and 8 receptions for 86 yards. I just think with Trubisky, he's very much like Josh Allen. Maybe not as, polished, maybe not as much, better coach. But I just kind of feel like with Trubisky, running the ball or, making some plays with his feet, the Bears being able to use Cohen and Montgomery in an effective way. And they're playing a Bears defense, which right now, in terms of points allowed, they are the 4th best defense in points allowed. Well, they just played the 3rd best defense in points allowed in Buffalo. And, I look at Matt Nagy and this Bears team, and, they swept the Lions, and they beat the Giants, nothing to write home about. But the Cowboys don't really give you that much confidence either. Like, Amari Cooper did not have that great of a bounce-back game. The defense was, Josh Allen was running, through them. And I just like the Bears here in this situation because I feel like they have a very similar type of style with the Bills. And I think being at home will kind of be the difference in that. And if you're just telling me, what team have I been more convinced that can win this game, it will be the Chicago Bears. Would I be surprised if the Cowboys won this game? Not at all. Look, they've split the last 6 games between these teams in Chicago. So, could Dallas go in there and win? Sure. And talent-wise, the Cowboys are clearly the better football team. In fact, they are favored in this game, and they are only one of 2 teams that have been favored in every single game this year. The other one was the New England Patriots. But I feel like with the Bears, they're a little bit more motivated. They have a little bit more of a confidence on their side. And they just saw what Buffalo did. They saw what New England did. And at least the Bears defense, they may not be able to score a lot. But they can score enough. And if it comes down to kicking, look, both Pinero and Maher, have been up and down. And Maher got a 35-yard field goal blocked by Starlo Tulele. And he missed a 47-yarder, which was just dreadful. And I just feel like, again, I will take the Bears in this game. I think they're more confident. I think they have a little bit more depth at running back. And they're at home. And I just think Dak going out there in the Chicago environment, I think he has another tough game against a very similar type team. I think Allen's a little bit better than Trubisky at this point, for this year at least. But I feel like with the Bears, I think they have a little bit better. They have a little bit of a better defensive grip, and I think the Bears pull this one out. Just by momentum, being at home, and the Cowboys. They lost Connor Williams to a torn ACL, and I think that will have a big impact because that means Xavier Su'a-Filo is now going to be starting for the rest of the year, and I think that'll be the difference. One of the differences in this game to where the Bears get this victory and get above 500. So that's why I like the Chicago Bears here, +3, and Chicago Bears straight up. The next game, the Atlanta Falcons over the Carolina Panthers. This game to me, I am stunned that in this situation, after what I saw Atlanta get, thumped by Tampa Bay in Atlanta, then they hosted the Saints, and basically, it really wasn't a competitive game. The offensive line for Atlanta got whipped. They got Matt Ryan for 8 sacks. He threw 2 interceptions. The biggest, and also Younghoe Koo, their now 3rd kicker of the year, missed 2 field goals, even though, again, he actually was able to hit 3 consecutive onside kicks, which was surprising. I think he's the only guy in the league so far to have 3 onside kicks converted this year up until Thanksgiving, there was only one onside kick that was converted. On Sunday, this week, there were 4. 3 by Koo. There wasn't really anything impressive with Atlanta. But after what I saw out of Carolina, I have to take Atlanta in this game. Because I feel like Atlanta, look, they showed a fight. You had Russell Gage. You had Christian Blake. You had Calvin Ridley make some nice plays offensively. Matt Ryan was using the backup tight end to an effective way. And I felt like the Falcons, they were able to move the ball more efficiently offensively. And after what I saw from the Panthers defense, I have to go with the Falcons here. Would I be surprised if Carolina won this game? Not at all. I think that Carolina showed you, especially early on in that game, Kyle Allen's throwing touchdown passes to DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel. We were all thinking, oh, it's going to be a rout. And then you watch this game here, and you're like, holy cow, Dwayne Haskins only throws for 140 yards, and he's able to win his second consecutive game. And the Panthers just couldn't do anything. Darius Geis, that was a surprising thing. Darius Geis and AP ran for, they had 23 carries for 228 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's absurd. Adrian Peterson doing that, okay, you could say, okay, look, he had a good day. But Darius Geis, the man that started a grand total of how many games? 3? He's had a grand total of, he's played in 4 games. He started only one of them. He's played a grand total of 4 games. And you let the man rush for 129 yards and 2 touchdowns and make him look like, hey, he was worth that second-round pick. Carolina, are you kidding me? And Kyle Allen had another big turnover in the game. And it just, after watching that performance, Christian McCaffrey, I thought he was going to have a fantastic game against the Redskins defense. He ended up getting 44, 58. So he got 100 scrimmage yards, but for the year he's having, that was kind of lackluster, especially against this Redskins defense, which is not very good. Right now the Redskins defense is 22nd in points and the 5th worst rushing defense. So for them to get under 50 yards rushing from Christian McCaffrey, job well done to them. But yeah, I like Atlanta here. I think, Devontae Freeman will be back, so they can definitely run the ball with him. They have Brian Hill. They have Kenyon Barner that can make some plays. I like how Ryan's using his weapons. They has Christian Blake. He has Russell Gage. He hopefully might get Hooper back. Julio Jones was a scratch, which was surprising to me. But after what I've seen from both teams, I'll take the Atlanta Falcons here. I think they're at home. They just beat this team just about 2 weeks ago, 29-3. And I'm just not... I just gave up on the Panthers after losing a game like that to a Redskins team that you had no business losing to. You had no business losing to the Washington Redskins that are in this elk at home. Could the Panthers win it? Sure. Kyle Allen's shown you that he can compete, he can make some plays, and, he can keep you in the running. And Atlanta's offensive line might get shredded again by this Panthers defensive front, Brian Burns, McCoy. Poe's out for the year. Luke Kuechly, Kawan, all those guys on the Panthers defensive front, they can get to Atlanta's offensive line, but I think Atlanta will just kind of run the ball with Freeman. Hopefully they get Jones back, and they'll be able to just make some more offensive plays compared to Carolina. So that's why I like the Atlanta Falcons here. -2, and the Atlanta Falcons straight up. The next game, the Baltimore Ravens over the Buffalo Bills. I am taking the Baltimore Ravens here because I have now the utmost confidence that the Baltimore Ravens will get at least to the Super Bowl. And I am not, I'm not doing this to be a homer. I have a bunch of evidence. We have the longest winning streak in the NFL at 8 games. We lead the league in time of possession. We're the number 1 scoring offense. Our defense has been stellar ever since we got Marcus Peters, even though he had his worst game as a Raven yesterday. We're the number 1 team in time of possession. We are rushing the ball at an historic rate. We had another 170 plus yards on the ground yesterday. And it's just one of those aspects where I think the difference between the Ravens and the Bills is the explosiveness and the talent we have offensively. I think that is, to me, the difference here in that, we've rushed for over 2,000, almost 2,500 yards, which is number one by far in terms of rushing defense. We're the 5th point defense. And I just think the Ravens, look, we can run the ball against Buffalo. I think we're more dynamic than the Cowboys. Lamar will be able to make a lot of plays with his feet and his legs. Very much like Josh Allen, but and Josh Allen, look, I will give him this credit. He had probably the best game of his career in the biggest stage, having 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. Since October, this guy has had 16 total, 16 thrown touchdowns, 2 interceptions. In fact, he has more rushing touchdowns this year. As strange as surprising as it may be, he has more rushing touchdowns than Lamar Jackson does this year. And he has now, I believe, 16 rushing touchdowns over his first 2 years. The only other quarterback that has more rushing touchdowns in his first 2 seasons, I believe, is Cam Newton. So Josh Allen is this kind of quarterback that, you have promise. He's playing more consistent. He's not turning the ball nearly over as much. You have a Bills team that, I think might feel disrespected. The last couple times we've gone up to Buffalo, I don't believe we have won. I know we played the Bills. I know we beat them last year. We blew them out. Actually, that was Lamar's first game. So I'm not going to sleep on the Bills, making this competitive or even winning, because this game could definitely be a trap aspect in my opinion. I feel like this could be a trap game for him. Or for the Ravens, because I feel like after winning all these games against the Niners and the Texans and the Patriots and all these big games, and especially with the Tucker field goal, I feel like Buffalo, we could just say, look, if we beat the Niners, we could beat the Bills. So I'm going to tell everybody right now, don't sleep on this Buffalo team making this game competitive and maybe even winning. But I think the difference to me is this is going to be the first time the Bills have faced this kind of offense. And they have a quarterback like Allen that can run and make plays, but I do not think he is as accurate a passer as Lamar Jackson is. But one thing to be very interested about, though, I want to inform everybody about is watch how the Bills use the perimeter of the field compared to how the Ravens use the middle of the field. Because we really do not throw a lot of passes outside on the sidelines or on the sidelines. We are very much a hash mark offense through our tight ends with Mark Andrews, with Hayden Hurst, with Steen, with Hollywood Brown in the slot. The Bills, they've shown you with John Brown and some other point, they can go up the sidelines with those kind of talents. So I think that'll be something interesting to watch in this game, but I'm going to take the Ravens here because I feel like Lamar is a more accurate passer and a more effective runner. Josh Allen can make some plays with his feet, and that will be something interesting to watch, and especially with how the Ravens defense looked yesterday against the run. I would not be surprised if the Bills could put a good amount of yards on the ground, especially with Devin Singletary and Frank Gore with Josh Allen. But I'm going to take the Ravens here because I feel like we have a better tight end depth. We have about equally talented receivers, and the defenses are about the same right now just in terms of play. So to me, that comes down to the quarterback, where if you take out the legs, I'm going to trust Lamar's arm, his instincts, and his decision-making that are going to be the difference in this game for the Ravens to get this win. And also, like I said, this is Buffalo's first time facing this kind of offense. They run some elements of it, and thankfully they have Brian Daboll, who at Alabama, could probably tell you a lot of maybe some of the tape that he's watched on Lamar Jackson, maybe looking up some games or just going through the college ranks because he got the observe him. But I feel like with the Ravens here, just the more accurate passer, the more effective kicker, and just the more dynamic of quarterback, and that's the difference in the game. So that's why I like the Baltimore Ravens here, minus 5.5, and the Baltimore Ravens straight up. The next game, the Cleveland Browns over the Cincinnati Bengals. This one right here, Freddie Kitchens and the Browns, man, you go up 10-0 on the Steelers. You have Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt both making 4 or 5 yards per game. Odell Beckham, he didn't really have that great of a game. He only had 4 receptions for about 29 yards. I think he only had less than 30 yards receiving. But you're playing the Pittsburgh Steelers. You had your opportunity to sweep the Pittsburgh Steelers for the first time since you've been back in almost 20 years. And what happened? You ended up getting, embarrassed by a team that was basically hodgepodge together by Pittsburgh. Baker Mayfield having 2 turnovers and a hand contusion. Hopefully he's okay. But Odell Beckham ended up only with 3 receptions for 29 yards, which was stunning. They had that one interception, which got down to the 30, and then Freddie Kitchens decides to throw the ball 3 straight times, which made no sense to me. And Odell Beckham right now has a career low in touchdowns at 2, which is kind of surprising after looking that stat up. But looking at this Browns team, there's no way after getting up to a 10-0 lead, you lose to the Devlin Duck Hodges-led Pittsburgh Steelers team that had no Stephon Tuitt, no James Conner, no Juju Smith-Schuster. In fact, I actually saw something. The Pittsburgh Steelers, if you take out Vance McDonald and Nick Vannett, if you take out those 2 tight ends for the game, the Pittsburgh Steelers were either throwing to first or second year receivers. First or second year receivers. I might be wrong because James Washington. But basically, James Washington was the only guy that could make a play for the Steelers in the game, and you still lost to that team. With the Browns, it's just one of those weird things where I just don't know. Baker Mayfield has the lowest completion percentage in the NFL out of qualified quarterbacks. He's also last, I believe, in terms of quarterback rating. He's also thrown the same amount of interceptions as he did last year. He has 15 TDs to 14 picks. Last year he had 27 TDs to 14 picks. He's playing defenses over the last 4 weeks, maybe besides Baltimore's, that he can get that touchdown rate up, playing the Bengals twice and the Cardinals. But that was just a really brutal game by the Cleveland Browns, and I put a lot of that blame on Freddie Kitchens. You do not wear a Pittsburgh started shirt, and even you could say, well, it was meant to be a reference to it was the start of their big run. I'm like, no, it wasn't. It was because remember they beat Buffalo to start that run, which ended at Pittsburgh. And by the way, the Pittsburgh Steelers now have won 16 straight home games against the Browns. That's surprising. And the Browns haven't been able to get a 4-game winning streak since 2009. But all that being said, I'm going to take the Browns here because even as great as the Bengals are, or even as great as the Bengals, feel after this win against the Jets, I don't think they can copy it. I don't think they can duplicate that against the Browns team that just has more talent. Baker Mayfield had 2 of his better games last year against this Bengals team. This Bengals team will not have A.J. Green. He's still recovering from an ankle injury. They were throwing to Drew Sample yesterday, and, Joe Mixon was making some nice runs. But Tyler Boyd, can he make some plays? Sure. But there's just a part of me going, there's no way that after the Bengals getting their big victory, that was their Super Bowl beating the Jets. Would I be surprised if the Bengals beat the Browns? A little bit, but I have to go with the Browns because I feel like, look, they got embarrassed. They're ticked off. They'll take it out on the worst team in the National Football League, so it's not going to be that impressive or that awe-inspiring to do. But I just feel like, again, Baker, he's had some of his best games, and the Bengals, I just think they could only elevate and be consistent for this game. And I think that is the difference in this game. So I'm going to take the Bengals, though, +8, because I honestly feel like with what the Bengals have done in the division, they have a 6-point loss, or they have a 7-point loss to Baltimore. They have a 6-point loss to Pittsburgh. They now have, so they've been able to compete in these games, especially, in these situations. So I'm going to take the Bengals here to say, hey, they can compete enough to cover 8 points. But I'm going to take the Browns here. More talent, angry. They're going to try to, defend their, confidence. And I think they do it against the Bengal team that just, as great as they were, I don't think they can duplicate it against the Browns. So that's why the Cleveland Browns here to win straight up, but I'll take the Cincinnati Bengals, +8. The next game, the Green Bay Packers over the Washington Redskins. This is one where there was a part of me that wanted to take the Washington Redskins plus 13.5 because I was like, well, they were a 10-point, underdog last week against Carolina and Kyle Allen and all that offense, but I was like, this is Green Bay. This is Dwayne Haskins and the Redskins going to Lambeau. And I can't remember the last time the Redskins actually won in Lambeau Field. It's probably been a long time. Before Rodgers or maybe even Favre, got there. But I'm going to take the Packers here. This is one of the lock of the week type games. Just because, again, the Packers, they handle their business. They got 3 picks on Daniel Jones. I think they get 1 or 2 picks on Dwayne Haskins. I don't think the Redskins are going to be able to run for nearly 228 yards against the Packers defense. Saquon Barkley, I believe, only ended up with about 50 or 60 yards against this team just yesterday. Let's see here. Yeah, Saquon Barkley ended up with... I'm sorry, I got to give Saquon a little credit. He got 83 yards on the ground and 32 yards receiving. So, I don't think the Redskins are going to be able to rush for over 200 yards on the ground against this Packers defense. And I just think this is just a complete mismatch. I think, look, Haskins, he's thrown 1 touchdown, and he's had to make a couple nice throws, but also the Redskins got some turnovers. But they're playing a Packer team that just clearly been better. They've been able to dominate mostly small inferior competition, especially with this wide of a gap. And I think the Packers roll. Actually, I will look up here the Green Bay Packers. Let me see. Washington. Let's see. I will tell everybody. Let's see. Let's go. All right. The Packers. The last time the Redskins won in Green Bay, you have to go back to 1988. I'm sorry. Let me strike that. The last time they won in Green Bay, they have not won in Green Bay since... They have not won in Green Bay since October 23rd, 1988, 20-17. So this is going on 30 years that the Redskins have not been able to go in Lambeau and win a game. So with that being said, with the young core of talent, with the better competition at quarterback, this is why I'm taking the Packers. It's fairly easy. Could the Redskins, if they could run the ball, could they, be surprising? Sure. But I feel like with the Packers, you were playing Kyle Allen. I mean, I should have thought, he might have some turnovers, he might make some mistakes. I don't think Rodgers makes the same mistakes against this Redskins team. So that's why I like the Green Bay Packers here minus 13.5 and the Green Bay Packers straight up. The next game, speaking of 13.5 point favorites, the Minnesota Vikings over the Detroit Lions. I'm going to take the Minnesota Vikings here because I feel like they've been consistent, against the Lions. I don't think Cousins has lost to them, or he's won all 3 games as a Viking. And I just look at the Lions and say, look, Jeff Driscoll's now on the IR, and David Blau, the quarterback from Purdue, who was, I believe, the quarterback when they beat Ohio State in that blowout, I have to look at the Lions here and say that I think that they can compete. The Lions this year have been very much like the Chargers. They're the NFC version of the Chargers, where they've been in basically every single game this year. They have 7 of their losses, I believe, 6 or 7 of their losses by 8 points or fewer. So they are in every single game. And David Blau, he had his first touchdown pass be a 75-yarder to Kenny Galladay. And then he had another one to Marvin Jones, and people actually thought, holy cow, maybe the Lions have their, next star. I'll put it this way. By the end of the game, he threw an interception to Eddie Jackson, not great. He had some drive stall. He had a weak roughing the passer call called for him. But I will say this, I believe that with Jeff Driscoll being on the IR, you can cut Jeff Driscoll and let David Blau be the back quarterback moving forward. And I think he has enough mobility and how the Vikings have played that just before their bye, they had a 20-0 lead. They had a 20-0 deficit to the Brandon Allen-led Broncos. So don't tell people that Minnesota's this unpenetrable team. No, Brandon Allen had a 20-point lead. So I think David Blau can kind of hold on to this game, especially with Scarborough running the ball as effective as he's been over the last few weeks. He had another 80 yards on the ground on Thanksgiving. They have Matt Prater, who's a reliable kicker. And I think the Lions can hold around in Minnesota to win this game. But the problem with Minnesota for me is that I feel like they were able to come back from a 20-point deficit. Dalvin Cook's been the leading rusher in the league for the majority of the year. Kirk Cousins has routinely played pretty consistently against the Lions. He's on a roll, and he might have the confidence of coming off his first ever Monday Night Football win. Remember that, everybody. Tonight, Kirk Cousins is trying to get primetime Monday Night Football win number 1. He is 0-7 all-time in Monday Night Football, and I think if he goes 0-8, that would be the worst start for a quarterback in the NFL for Monday Night Football history. No quarterback has played 8 consecutive Monday Night Football games without getting a victory. So I'm going to take the Vikings here to win because I feel like they have the better talent. David Blau, if he starts, it's going to be his second game. I don't think he can move the ball effectively on the Vikings. And I just think the Vikings, they're going to run the ball. They're at home. And they're just a better team. And it's a 1 o'clock game for Kirk Cousins, and that's where Kirk Cousins usually tends to play his best. So that's why I like the Minnesota Vikings here to win straight up, but I will take the Detroit Lions plus 13.5. The next game, in the NFC Championship preview game, the New Orleans Saints over the San Francisco 49ers. This one, to me, it just has to come down to home field advantage again. Look, I will tell everybody right now, I'm basically going to be like a broken record. Last week, if anybody watched my video, I said the same thing about the Niners and Ravens. Basically, the biggest reason why I took the Ravens was I thought that, they were playing an offense I hadn't seen, and they had to go out to Baltimore. If I'm Kyle Shanahan and I'm smart, I just stay on the East Coast. We go down to somewhere in Louisiana or somewhere on the East Coast and stay there the whole week, and we'll practice. Actually, the college season done, you could ask Ole Miss or Mississippi State if we could stay down there for the week and just practice and just get acclimated with the Eastern Coast time. But I feel like with San Francisco here, they're going up against a Saints team that I feel like just has been a little bit more consistent, and I'm going to use this edge. Okay, it's very much like college. Okay, San Francisco and New Orleans, they're both 10-2. San Francisco has 2 losses by 6 points at the gun with field goals. Jason Myers from 42, Justin Tucker from 49. When you look at the Saints' losses, they got a decisive loss against the Rams, and they lost to the Atlanta Falcons 26-9. Which, after you look at the Falcons, that's pretty pathetic. So people would say, well, the Niners have been a better team because you have a 10-2 team here with two at the gun field goal losses. What I'm going to say is this: New Orleans, just like Oklahoma last year, they've only had 1 loss technically because they just beat Atlanta 26-18. So the only team they lost to was when Drew Brees got hurt. And I'm going to say this right now. If Drew Brees was out the whole game, or they knew beforehand, and he was out, I guarantee you the Saints could have probably beat that Rams team in week 2 with a fully rested Teddy Bridgewater. So I feel like, to me, right now, the Saints are the better team. Because I feel like the Saints' loss is more of a fluke with the Rams. Because, again, they've beaten all 11 teams. They've beaten all 11 out of the 12 teams they played, or out of the games they played, they've beaten every single team on their schedule except one in the Rams. That's more fluky than what I've seen out of the Niners. And the Niners, look, I feel like they should get Matt Breida back, which would be big. They're going into a dome, which is incredibly hard to win in. The last time they went in that dome, they were able to get the victory. That was the Jimmy Graham pass interference blunder. But I'm going to take the Saints here because they're home. And again, I would just say this. The Saints have been a better team, in my opinion, right now, after everything I've seen, than the Niners have. Because I can always say the Saints have beaten every single team on their schedule except one. And the Niners they've had a routine pattern of when they play better competition, that they just cannot on defense, or they just make mistakes against offenses that are efficient and running that cost them the chance to win games or, give up field goals at the end. I think this is going to be a fantastic game, and personally, as a Russell Wilson fan, I am rooting for the 49ers to knock the Saints out of the number 1 seed in the NFC right now. But I'm going to take the Saints here. I feel like, again, they're home, and I feel, again, they've been the more consistent team. You're having a nice travel out to that dome, and I feel like the Saints, they've dealt with more adversity, and they can pull out this game against the Niners team that in this type of situation, they have not shown me against the top teams in close games that they can pull it out. So that's why I like the New Orleans Saints here to win straight up, but I'll take the San Francisco 49ers +3. The next game, the Miami Dolphins over the New York Jets. This is one where, honestly, I would have probably taken the Jets if they would have beat the Bengals. I would have said, look, the Jets have won 4 straight games for the first time since 2015. They're at home. They've already beaten the Cowboys at home. They beat the Giants in a home game, and they seem to, have their footing. But after you get decisively lost against Cincinnati, where Le'Veon Bell doesn't even have 100 yards on the ground, they only gave him, I think, under 20 touches against the worst rushing defense in the league. They gave up about 177.6 yards on the ground. I just, I was like, after you see that just ruined all the Jets' momentum. That ruined every bit of momentum the Jets had this year, in my opinion. And I look at Miami and go, look, since they played Washington, Miami has been a solid football team. They have, if you look, ever since the Redskins game, the Miami Dolphins, ever since their bye, they have a 1-point loss to Washington, a 10-point loss to Buffalo, which was aided by a, Micah Hyde onside kick touchdown. They beat the Jets by 8 points. They beat the Colts by 4 points. They, got decisively beaten by Buffalo and Cleveland, but then they beat Philadelphia by 6. This Miami team right now, they played the Jets, the Giants, and the Bengals the next 3 weeks. The Dolphins could get, honestly, 6 wins out of this year, which I think is a remarkable accomplishment. And honestly, with how the Dolphins are playing, with how much confidence they have, with that kicker punter touchdown, which I thought was fantastic. First kicker to score a touchdown since 1977. I have to take the Dolphins here because I have more confidence in them. I know the Jets maybe have played better, over the last few weeks. They've gotten more dominating victories, and they have the better record. But you can't lose to the Bengals. You can't lose to the Bengals after that. And I can't take you against a Dolphins team that, like I said, up and down, look, they've had bad games against Buffalo and Cleveland where, they were kind of in it for a little bit, but they got decisively beaten. But I just like what the Dolphins are right now. I like what the Dolphins' position are in. And also for the Dolphins, they get to just kind of stay up around there because they actually get to play the Jets and Giants in back-to-back weeks. So they're going to the same exact place. So that's why I like the Miami Dolphins here, +6, and the Miami Dolphins straight up. The next game, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the Indianapolis Colts. This is one where I have to go with the more looking effective team. Tampa Bay, they just thoroughly whipped the Jags from pillar to post. Shaquille Barrett forced his 5th fumble. Devin White had a 14-yard fumble recovery touchdown. They had Ronald Jones, make some good runs. Jameis had an okay game. He didn't turn it over, which was significant. And the Buccaneers were just kind of moving up and down the field at will during stretches of that game with the receiving core they have. And I looked at Indy in their game against Tennessee, and it was kind of weird where, Indy was kind of showing the dominance they have had over the Titans over the years. The Titans were 19-3 since 2009 in the divisional games, in the divisional games since they've played them. But by the end, Vinatieri missing another 2 50-plus yard field goals, one getting a return for a touchdown. Jacoby throwing 2 picks, one to Kevin Byard, and I forget who the other one was to, but he threw a second pick. I looked at the Colts and said, I think they're out of this town, And I look at Tampa, and Tampa over the last couple weeks, they've kind of played more effective football. Again, Jameis Winston has had 20 interceptions, which is incredible. And, the Colts, can they get a turnover on Jameis Winston? Sure they could. But I feel like with Tampa, they've been able to get more, big turnovers. They've been able to generate more pressure. And they just look more sound offensively compared to the Colts right now, who just, Derrick Henry just ran for another $150 on him on the ground. And I think Tampa wins this game just based off just kind of confidence. I feel like the Buccaneers are now playing a little better football than Indy, and I think that carries over into this game. Could Indianapolis win this game? Sure. Jameis Winston gives you 1 or 2 turnovers. That should be enough. But I'm going to take Tampa here. Better team, a little better confidence right now. Not as injured, and I just think that Tampa will be able to make enough points and make enough plays with Jones, with number 44, and with Barber in this game to win. Sounds like Tampa Bay here -3 and Tampa Bay straight up. The next game, the Houston Texans over the Denver Broncos. Congratulations, Houston. After 5 tries, Bill O'Brien gets his first win over the New England Patriots, and they're only the second time in their franchise history that they've actually been able to beat the Houston Texans, I believe. Both of those wins were at home. Deshaun Watson had a fantastic day. He threw for 3 touchdowns, and he caught another one from DeAndre Hopkins on the creative trick play that Bill O'Brien said was given to him on a piece of paper. And I like what Houston did. Duke Johnson had a nice game. Bradley Roby got a pick. Bradley Roby got an interception that was called back, but he also got a big sack on Tom Brady. They sacked Tom Brady 3 times. I thought Darren Fells made some big catches. He also had the big touchdown catch. DeAndre Hopkins was in wide open spaces. And then there was that one sequence where they had, I think it was Kuti and somebody else catch touchdowns on back-to-back possessions. And they couldn't do anything. And I just thought the Texans were just kind of the more effective team the entire way through. Jacob Martin got a sack. So Jacob Martin now in back-to-back games has got a sack, and actually got the quickest sack on Tom Brady this year, and I believe 2.77 seconds. So nicely done by him. And I'm going to take the Texans here because I just feel like, again, they're the more complete team. They're playing a Denver team that, I believe they're the first team, or the only team in the NFL this year that has had 3 different quarterbacks, and they've got 3 different guys starting quarterback with victories with Joe Flacco, Brandon Allen, and Drew Lock. And Drew Lock had a pretty good game. He had 2 touchdowns to Cortland Sutton. He was able to kind of make some throws. He did have that 1 pick late in the game, which I thought might have been the difference. And if it wasn't for the Chargers being able to convert a huge 4th and 11 to Mike Williams, the Broncos may not have needed the 53-yard field goal from Brandon McManus to win the game. But I'm going to take the Broncos here +8 because the Broncos have kind of been like the Dolphins in the sense of, like, you look at their 4-8 record, but then realize Chicago and Jacksonville and Indy and Minnesota and all these games where the Broncos were in the game. Like, they could be fighting for a playoff spot right now if a bunch of kicks didn't go their way. So could I see the Denver Broncos competing against the Texans? Sure. Look, Kyle Allen earlier this year was able to beat them. So I think Drew Lock in his second start, they don't have much tape on him. I think he can make a competitive game out of it. But I'm going to take the Texans here. The last time the Broncos, I think, went to Houston, they won. But that was a Peyton Manning. I do not... and I know they have the history also with Tebow getting his first win back in Week 16 of 2010 with that. But I just think right now Houston's the better team. Houston has more experience. I think they're going to... Romeo Crennel is going to be able to get a lot of confusion on Drew Lock. And I don't think with Von Miller dealing with an injury, I don't think they're going to get a lot of pass rush on Watson or he'll make plays. And I think Houston's receivers with the Broncos secondary should be able to have a good game. So that's why I like Houston here straight up, and I'll take Denver +8. The next game, the Jacksonville Jaguars over the Los Angeles Chargers. Ladies and gentlemen, this one to me, I'm going to go with the Jaguars because I just can't trust the Chargers. Like, this is the game, this to me is the cruddy toss-up game of the week. You could argue Dolphins-Jets is number 2, but at least with the Dolphins, I have some confidence. In this one, honestly, whoever wants the game less will give the game away. Because Jacksonville looked pathetic. Nick Foles got benched, so for the second year in a row, the Jacksonville Jaguars have benched their quarterback that they paid over $50 million to in the offseason. And now they may go back to Gardner Minshew. And with the Chargers, look, they have now lost every single game by 8 or fewer points. Phillip Rivers consecutive, or most amount of 1-point losses. And here's the amazing thing. I thought this was great. So I found this out. So the Chargers have been in the third most one-possession game since 2000. They had the 21st winning percentage. So that's the thing that's so frustrating with the Chargers. That, like, you know that anybody they play, they will put up a fight. But you know, more often than not, they're going to choke a game away. And they choked the game away to a rookie quarterback on a pass interference call, which Casey Hayward knows as a veteran he should not have committed. But I'm going to take Jacksonville here because, honestly, I do not think the Chargers are going to be able to hold on. Or just with the history of the Chargers, they'll choke this game out. Could the Chargers win this game? Absolutely. Maybe Jacksonville, pulls the Chargers. This game to me is who is going to choke the most in this game between these two teams. And I will take the Jacksonville Jaguars here. Also, it's a road game for the Chargers. They have to go out to the East Coast. They've lost to the Chargers before with Blake Bortles in Jacksonville, and I think that'll be the difference. But yeah, this game, I can't take the Chargers. I'm sorry. So that's why I like Jacksonville plus 2.5 and Jacksonville straight up. The next game, the Titans over the Raiders. This one to me is fairly simple because the Tennessee Titans, they've been on a roll. They've won 5 of their 6 games with Ryan Tannehill starting. They have played really well. Derrick Henry is, going to get a nice paycheck from the Titans because I feel like he's been their most consistent offensive weapon. The Titans defense was able to get 2 big interceptions. Suckup has been able to kick nicely well. And I just look at the Raiders and I just feel like, again, the Raiders, after having all the confidence, after beating Cincinnati, to get to 6-4, go into New York and go into Kansas City and lose by 31-plus points in back-to-back games. Derek Carr looks ineffective. The only bright spot the Raiders have had is Josh Jacobs, who had over 100 yards on the ground, and it surprised me because I was like, that's the worst thing Kansas City does is defend the run. And the Raiders are like, we'll just stop. We'll just stop running. And that Raider defense was getting shredded. I don't think the Titans are going to be that explosive offensively, but I will take the Titans here because I feel like, again, their defense has been playing consistent. They're on this nice little hot roll here. I think Tannehill will outplay Derek Carr with the weapons he has offensively. I think they'll be able to run the ball effectively with Derrick Henry. I think the Titans will get a good amount of push. And I just feel like the Raiders right now are defeated, and the Titans realize they are still fighting for the AFC South, especially with 2 division games against the Texans in the final 3 weeks. I think the Titans know they need to win this one to get themselves in position to possibly win the AFC South from the Texans in that moment. That's why I like Tennessee here, -3, and Tennessee straight up. The next game, the Kansas City Chiefs over the New England Patriots. I'm taking the Chiefs here because that Patriot offense is bad. They are right now behind the Jets and the Bears. The offense that's punted the most amount of times besides those 2 offenses is New England's. They can't get anybody, separation. Sanu, Myers, Dorsett, Lacoste, Izzo. They really can't separate. And I like what the Chiefs' defense has been doing. I know, look, the Patriots going in there, the Chiefs, and look, I'll point this out. The Chiefs were able to get a win over New England back in the opener of 2017. So this Chief team can go in there. Most of the guys are there into New England and win. And I just feel like, again, with the Chiefs offense, I don't think the Patriots defense will have enough. They had 4 passing touchdowns going into the game. They gave up 4 to the Texans. And I feel like with the Chiefs offense, they can give them another 2 or 3 in the same way. And I think the Chiefs defense will be able to do enough defensively with pressure, especially with Ted Larson getting hurt, or Ted Karras getting injured and with an MCL sprain. I think the Chiefs are able to pull off a big victory and put the Patriots at 10-3. So that's why Kansas City here +3 and Kansas City straight up. The final 3 games, Pittsburgh over Arizona. I'm taking Pittsburgh here because this Pittsburgh team is an incredible story. Mike Tomlin is a Coach of the Year candidate. But after what I saw out of Arizona, Kyler Murray is dealing with a hamstring injury, but they were just getting ramrodded from the Rams every which way. I don't think Duck Hodges will put up that many points, but I feel like the Steelers just should be able to win with their defense against the banged-up Cardinal team. The Seahawks, and that's why I like Pittsburgh here -1.5, Pittsburgh straight up. Seattle over the Rams. Seattle's the only undefeated team on the road, and I know the Rams, look, they felt good about themselves against Arizona, but that was Arizona to Seattle. That's why I like Seattle -2.5, and Seattle straight up. And finally, the Eagles over the Giants. The Eagles have to beat the Giants, right? Like, the Giants have lost 10 or 8 straight, and I have very little confidence in them. So that's all my picks for this week. And until next time, this is Matthew signing off. Till next time, so long.